Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachael for this Monday, the 17th day of May. Today, I would like to talk about something that is very close to my heart because of people who are family members, people who are friends, parishioners I have had through the years, and people who have been colleagues. Today, I would like to talk about the fact that today is the International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. And it says here, it's a day to recognize that while the rights of the LGBTQI plus people have significantly advanced in recent decades, progress remains patchy and geographically uneven. Just as the gradual expansion of anti-discrimination legislation offers optimism, tragedies like the recent honor killing of a 20-year-old gay Iranian, Alireza Fazeli Monfared, serve as a stark reminder of the work ahead. The past year has also put an incredible strain on LGBTQI plus communities as governments in all regions of the world neglected them in their responses to COVID-19 pandemic. Corruption and discrimination are both significant barriers to achieving an equal and inclusive future, but have so far been studied in isolation from one another, with little research being done on the nature of the relationship between them. For some of you, this may be a no-brainer topic, that why are we even needing to worry about this anymore? It's been homosexuality, transsexuality, bisexual, all of these different understandings of sexuality have been around for millennia. We have only really been talking about it, though, for a couple of decades, and probably only in the past decade has it really come home in a strong way. I have a family member who is openly gay, and he is a beautiful young man who is, that's just what he is. He's a beautiful young man, and who his sexuality, or his understanding of his sexuality and the way he lives out that sexuality, has nothing to do with who he is as a person, except that it informs who he is as a person. I have a beautiful friend who I had a great conversation with yesterday, who lived his life to a certain point as a female, while in his body he always knew he was male, and has made the transition and is now an upstanding citizen, a wonderful person, a good friend, a very faithful husband, and he's a contributing member of society. I have had professors and colleagues who were gay, who were straight, who were all of these things, and you know what? How they felt about attraction to another human being made absolutely no difference to whether they were a great colleague, a wonderful priest, how they taught me, if they were my professor. It had nothing to do with our friendship, except that was a part of what made them who they were. Today is a day that in Canada we recognize, around the world we recognize, that there are still people who have phobias about these things. There are still people who are terrified or angry or, say horrible things about people who are different than they are. And I think that says more about the world than it does about someone who is honestly discovering who God created them to be. There's a problem in our world when the isms become what drives us. Racism, people who are terrified or angry about homosexuality, people who are put women down, and people who are terrified of feminism. All of these isms, they're a frustration because it takes us away from looking at who people are at the heart of who they are. It takes us away from looking at the person as the child of God. I had a great conversation with a friend yesterday. We're talking about those things we bring from our past, those things that carry us forward, that make us wonder, are we worthy? Am I good enough for something? Can I really do this? Who do I think I am, thinking I could take on whatever task, whatever challenge, whatever honor might be offered? And I was reminded, very wise man indeed, he reminded me that to ask the question, not to be angry about the question, who do you think you are, but to ask it with a different tone of voice. Who do you think you are? Because the very first part of the answer to that question is you are a child of God. You are made in God's own image. Wow, where do we go from there? Isn't that incredible? That you are a child of God. Whoever you are watching this right now, you are a child of God. And it can't get better than that. And if you identify and you believe, you know yourself to be a heterosexual person, awesome. If you are a homosexual person, equally awesome. It doesn't, it's a part of who you are. You have two hands, 2 feet, a nose on your face, 2 eyes, a mouth. It's a part of who you are. Why are we so hung up on that? I've been reading and doing a course called Indigenous Canada, and there's a whole section, a whole module on the role of women and what they refer to as genderful people. And it was like an aha moment. It was like an aha hour and a half for me watching the videos and reading the work, the readings, because these are not new ideas to me. This idea of genderful or gender fluidity, it's not a new idea, but it's a new way of labeling it for me. I'd never understood, I've always understood what they've meant, but didn't realize there was a name for it or there was a way of talking about it that I wish I'd had when I was a young priest helping my young friend discover who he really was in God's eyes. I wish I had had this when I had been working through issues with other young people and colleagues and parishioners who had been coming to terms with who they were, and not only having to come to terms for themselves with who they were, but then sharing that with their families and not knowing how their families and friends would react. This idea that we have a physical gender, but then on top of that, we have this development of who we are and who we are becoming. It was like chains broke free from me when I heard them speaking about this. I mean, we've talked about, that we haven't here talked about, but in the world, we talk about certain kinds of women. And, I am not a feminine woman. I don't like to wear makeup. I wear makeup about twice a year. And you know what? I look nice with makeup. Maybe I look better with makeup, but I feel so not myself. I'm so worried about wiping it off or feeling like I'm conspicuous. It's just not a part of who I am. It's not a part of what I feel I need to do every day. There are lots of people, lots of women, lots of people who do like to wear makeup. It enhances them and they feel more themselves that way. And that's awesome. But I struggled for many, many years thinking what was wrong with me that I wasn't a girly girl. I wasn't a tomboy either. Where was I? Where did I fall in this sense of what it is to be a woman, biologically and spiritually and in community? And hearing this conversation, this idea that as we grow and as we mature and we develop and become who the Creator has called us to become, we discover how our gender influences us and how it encourages us and how it allows us to be who we are. It doesn't determine who we are, and it should not label or pigeonhole or put us in a box to say this is who this person is. And so today, as we celebrate a day in which we strive toward eliminating the phobias we have about people's sexuality and their expressions of who they are, this is a wonderful opportunity for us to start that work. I know that for a lot of people, this is a non-issue. Okay, what's the problem? For a lot of people, though, it's a big issue. They really can't understand. In the church, it's an issue. In this diocese, we had Bishop Jane, who stood up after a General Synod after the two votes, the vote against the blessing or the against gay marriage, and then the reversal of that vote due to technological mistakes the next morning. And she said something to the effect that all of us have stood in the other's shoes. Those of you who were devastated last night because marriage between two people of the same gender would not be allowed in the church are now celebrating today, and those of you who were celebrating last night because it had been disavowed are now grieving because a reversal has been made. We need to walk with compassion with each other because we now know how the other feels. The church has a long way to go. We have a lot of work we need to do because we need to get to that point where we're not fighting about gender issues. We're not fighting about sexuality. We're fighting that people will have a safe place to sleep, that people will have food security, that children will not be abused, and homeless people will not be simply arrested. We have work to do in how we help reconcile and heal Indigenous peoples, and how do we embrace and celebrate the gift of immigrants in our country. How do we work together to get through this pandemic? Today is a day that we are called to set aside our phobias about those things that we do not understand and embrace an opportunity to learn and to grow and maybe meet some new people who can expand our thinking. So to my friends, to my young friend who knew he was a man from the moment he looked in the mirror, to my friends to my relatives who are living their lives in joy and peace now that they can be completely who they were meant to be, to all of my colleagues and professors and all of the people who have taught me along the way, that the best gift that you can give back to God is to honor the gift that God has given you in being who you are. To all of you, I raise my cup and I say thank you. God bless you. And to all who might be struggling with what I've said today, please don't let this be the end of the conversation, but I encourage you to let this be the beginning. May God bless us all. Stay safe, have a good day, and I will see you again for Church at Home with Rachael tomorrow.